of the panelists were talking about oil, there was also a lot of, the balancing act was to be done by green or the renewable part of it, which will also make us self-sustainable. It's also has a strategic intent to it. I'll ask the panelists to give their views for 3 minutes each, and then we'll take it on from there.
Energy can be developed, yes, but at a cost. Yes, if you're endowed with rich oil basins, etc., then you can afford it. But given India's situation, I think disruptive technologies and I think disruptive policies also will have to play a very major role. We've seen in the electricity sector where I worked for long, for example, you see the CFL revolution pushed us from incandescents to CFL and now to LEDs, where you're using a fraction of what you were using earlier. And with the given prices of electricity, which of course continue to be a fraction of what they are in many developed countries, still electricity, not oil prices, we still were unable to extend electricity to most of our homes. That's our major concern. In fact, some data which should be published very shortly shows that our per capita electricity consumption in the residential sector as a country is still 1/3 of the non-OECD average. Now, in the oil sector, shale, gas hydrates, shale already is a technology which has been disruptive, developed. Gas hydrates is looming in the corner, but still, I don't think we're working enough on it.
All right.
In the nuclear side, they're talking of modular nuclear, which could probably bring down the cost because the time and the amount of money that is going into the conventional large size nuclear plants, which you're talking of 2,000 MW capacities, 1,000 the least, things like that. We've got to come down probably to modular ones which we can afford and maybe even states can afford.
Is there a question about emergence of technology? I don't think. That has been very clearly emerging in the oil and gas sector.
In India?
Then, no, I'm talking of the global one.
All right.
Then it comes to the second issue of any country's ability to adopt that. That could be affordability, it could be ability to have an access to the technology, or it's accessible, but for reasons of procedures, vision, newer finds taking place, and including in exploration, ability to deploy that. And the third one is that there are some of our exploration production companies who have access to that, they have attempted getting those technology into, and then it comes to absorption of the technology into your fields. There again, we haven't done greatly so. I think what underscores us is that our development of the exploration production sector, refining, or for that matter, any other technology intensive one, is hinged around our ability to adopt. There is a very important discussion in any technology with respect to hydrocarbon, and that is the debate around national oil companies, international oil companies, intermediaries included, and the service providers. Today's maximum number of patents in technology development are with service providers.
The technologies, disruptive technologies, before I respond to this question, the most important point is like that, especially in the E&P sector. If you look back, these disruptive technologies per se, which is happening in the other sectors like ITs and electronics and other places, you just compare, you cannot compare with the E&P industry. E&P industry, every technology is cost intensive capital investment, and E&P industries, they move in a pause. Just half a minute I will say, 1859 when the first William Drake has drilled the first well in on lands, and 1867 when the Digboy oil has come. After that, the offshore has been developed in a very shallow water in a only 8 feet depth in 1920s. And it was a paused base, and the requirement was not there. When there is a challenge, when there is a development, then naturally you will go for this kind of disruptive technology investment. Now, globally, 1% or 2% of the whole budget has been invested by the NOCs and IOCs, and 3 to 4% by the service companies for R&D for this kind of innovative technologies. Now, the real innovative and the disruptive technologies has come in the last maybe 20, 30 years, when deep water has been developed, when horizontal wells started coming into the mainstream, when this hydrofracturing in a massive factory mode for the shale oil development or shale gas development has taken place. So for this kind of disruption to happen, coming to these technologies which is available throughout the world, yes, in India, all these technologies, whether it is public sector undertaking, whether it is international oil companies or the private sector, they are bringing. But there are certain limitations. Now, if we look back some data from the exploration point of view, the earlier session we have discussed, we are having 3.14 million square kilometer of our sedimentary basins.
Right.
44% are still unexplored.
Absolutely.
So there is a part of the policies.
Price, at the end of the day, it has to be competitive. It has to be competitive with other conventional sources. You're talking about 4 rupee 50 paisa per unit kind of a tariff. How does one reach there?
Today, if you look at different types of technology, you've seen renewables, solar came from 18 rupees to down to today at 6.5. So again, through disruption of technology. Similarly, in the wind side, we have not seen such a massive scale of change. But the competition will have its play, and therefore the capex part is the key, which will determine the choice of technology, and then the variable part, which is most related to OPEX. So that will result in the ultimate tariff. So this war between different technologies will continue, but the security issue, security and the supply issue is also one determinant.
What are we doing on the policy part on the demand side now?
Actually, it is not much from a policy-driven point of view. But if you look at it from a technology, and unlike like DISCOM, I would like to share my perspective from the consumer end. In fact, the prices of the energy has been going up quite significantly year after year. So whatever mathematical calculation you do on your energy efficiency, one has to look beyond the fence. What holds good today does not hold good next year, and in fact, your paybacks are really good. So there are a lot of technologies which has been implemented like geothermal, like producer gas.
Good evening to all of you assembled here on this annual energy conclave. The International Energy Agency has defined energy security as the uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price, except for coking coal, which is yet not explored to adequate extent. I am confident that given 3 or 4 years, India will not have any import dependence at all, whether it is in the equipment side, whether it's in the fuel side, or it's possibly also in the distribution, the renewable energy, all new innovations that we are looking for. We may have some challenge possibly on gas, where we would have to possibly for some more time look at imports. We have about 18,500 villages which still remain to be electrified, which, as Prime Minister Modi said on Independence Day, is a well-defined target that in the next 1,000 days, we would have a situation where every village, every revenue village in the country, and that's about 5,97,000 villages, would have energy access. You converted a country which was perennially short of power and coal into a country where today editorials are being written about the low PLF in the country and the fact that power is not being sold enough. A lot is happening on the ground. This government is committed not to a band-aid solution. We are not looking at short-term measures. Very easy for us to start printing notes and showing a false sense of prosperity. We saw that for 2-3 years, 2008 to 10. And then we saw what the country suffered for 5 years after that. We are looking at 3 years down the road. This country should not have a single incandescent bulb in the country. Hopefully no CFL also. And I'm talking 3 years, replacing 770 million LED bulbs in people's homes. And just this program will save 100 billion units of electricity consumption. That's 10,000 crore units of electricity. Translates even at a nominal 4 rupees if we were to take 40,000 crores. And that benefit goes straight into your pocket. In terms of energy security, our renewable energy targets will certainly, as we quadruple our generation from clean sources and possibly couple it with a renewed thrust on the hydro side, on the nuclear side, bio mass conversion into electricity or energy. I'm sure all of these will clearly demonstrate to the world that India is in the forefront of action. India is in the forefront of the world's efforts to reduce impact of pollution or climate change. And as things stand today, I don't think any other country in the world has taken upon this challenge as seriously. And with the amount of integrity in our plans that India is doing, I am not seeing any comparable anywhere in the world. Of course, we will continue to depend on coal for a few more years, particularly as a base load, particularly till we get very affordable storage solutions being developed technologically in the country. But at the base, our intention and our effort to tackle the curse of climate change is demonstrated by the serious action on the part of the government, all the stakeholders in the system. And I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, we will become the world's largest producer of renewable energy 7 years from today. And no power on earth can either stop it, and no deterrent, irrespective of any support we get or don't get from the developed world, irrespective of the fact that the people who polluted this world for the last 150 years and threw all this carbon into the atmosphere while they developed their nations, its infrastructure, homes, industry, jobs, high per capita incomes, while the energy was cheap, and are today sermonizing on how the world should look at clean energy, despite the fact that no support is forthcoming, almost from any of them. India stands committed to this goal. We look at it not only as a commitment towards the environment, but an integral part of our energy security going forward. I would seek the cooperation and the commitment of each one of you as we move towards making India truly a better place to live in. We leave behind a better planet for the generations ahead of us. And we all pledge to be a part of this mission to provide 24/7 power, affordable power, to every citizen of this country, to every industry, to every business of this country. Thank you very much.
I'd like to now request Mr. Ashish Basu, President Corporate Functions at GMR Energy, to please share his views with us.
A very warm welcome to you all at this conclave arranged by Mint. In the last 6-7 months, if I'm correct, oil prices have halved. Currently, it's ruling at around 40, and 1 year forwards are sub 50. Lows which have been touched after decades. The estimate is, I am told, between $50 to $55. If oil prices stay, many shale oil fields become unviable, especially those who are relying on huge debts. On the demand side, hard landing, is it the right word, or significant slowdown of China, which had been driving commodity prices, global overall slowdown has created a demand-supply imbalance which has caused this. The Iran deal also is a major dampener. If reports are to be believed, they have 30-40 million barrels to be pushed into the market immediately. On the flip side, if oil prices are low in the long term, it will affect the Indian diaspora in the Middle East in their income, who happen to be the biggest forex earner for the country. For countries like India, energy storage would mean solar and wind can be integrated into the main grid, A. Grids can be stabilized, B. C. Peaks can be flattened. That means generation investment to meet peak demand can be reduced. Fourthly, renewable energy along with energy storage can reach power in far-flung remote areas without relying on DISCOMs, which will cut ATC losses and reduce investments.
We are talking about 100 gigawatts of solar and 60,000 megawatt of wind. How do we get there? And is it challenging enough for you?
The main challenges associated with this large target are transmission, financing, distribution companies' ability to buy this power, and supplies, manufacturing, and developers coming forward. So what I see is that there are enough developers, there is a lot of interest. This announcement itself generated a lot of interest all over the world. So we had all these large companies coming to India and they want to invest. Transmission, here I would just give the credit to the Honorable Minister and the Power Ministry, because Power Ministry being with renewable, that has helped. So that's what has given the confidence. We now know that transmission is not a constraint, it's going to happen. And whenever we announce some solar park or announce a large project, immediately Power Grid is there, and Power Grid with very confident message comes forward and they say that we'll do it, we'll do it in time. Financing, we need financial institutions to come forward. I think that confidence is now building in. International investors are coming in, and that's why I think that this will happen. Distribution companies, earlier they were all reluctant, they didn't want to buy this kind of power. Now with scale the price has also come down. So we've seen price of 5 rupees, 5 paisa and all being bid. So that confidence is also coming in. So overall I see a lot of confidence coming in, and therefore I think we should be able to do it.
Right. So we've done 2 green bonds till date. The first one was a 1,000 crore green bond, which by global standards is quite small. But it was still significant because it was India's first green bond ever. And we had domestic participation. We've done a second one again, where IFC has participated. But Utpal, the main point of doing a green bond is really to refinance the existing projects which are operational. What that does is it releases the funds back into the banking system, because as a bank, my expertise is to take a risk, understand the risk for the project development. Once it is operational, the risk can very well be transferred to other investors who are looking at a yield, which typically is what a bond investor is looking at.
Right.
So in India, unfortunately, the bond market itself is very small compared to as a percentage of GDP. And the other issue is that bond investors look at ratings, so AA, AAA. And unfortunately, most renewable energy projects end up being BBB even after commercialization.
Right.
Mostly because of perceived risk, could be payment risks, could be various other factors which we can get into. So this, some sort of credit enhancement that can happen in renewable projects is really where I think some focus of the government will have to go.
I can assure you that what we have seen in the last 18 months is unprecedented growth of solar in the Indian market. And comparing this with growths around the world, the amount of interest that you see, we personally have experienced a CAGR of 154% since I started the business. The tariffs are down in the 5 to 6 rupee range. So it is now economically viable. I think as the Joint Secretary pointed out, the challenges on the financing side, I think the first couple of years it was really hard to raise capital, especially in the domestic market.
Right.
But in the last 2 years, we've seen phenomenal interest and growth from local banks to come forward, because the technology is well understood, the generation is well understood, and then you are left with the offtake contracts. On the national contracts, the payment security mechanisms have been designed so well that they are stronger than what we've seen in international markets as well.
I think it's important to take a step back and actually lay out what our objectives are at Paris. And we could articulate that in two ways. One goal is for us to preserve our development space. So we cannot constrain our development goals in any manner whatsoever. But the second goal, which is equally important for India because we are deeply vulnerable to climate impacts, is for there to be an effective agreement that comes out of Paris, because that's what will create global momentum to actually address the problem.
First of all, if the regulatory commissions need to be strengthened, and if you look at all developed nations, the regulatory commissions are institutions which have 300, 400 people. They have institutional memory. In India, what we have is about 2 or 3 chairmen, members, and the staff is just not there, and even if they're there, they're transferred on a frequent basis. It just doesn't, it is not operational, to be honest. So state after state. And also we have seen another thing. It is, the institution is not performing.
It was a very engaging discussion. In fact, some of the stuff that is being talked about, that's when you talked about the transmission system being done by the CEA, the report coming in, there has been a lot of interest in the renewable energy space in this country. We have, and hence I can still see an audience at around 9:30 in the evening still here. Thanks for your time. I would like to thank the panelists for taking out time from the schedule to be here with us, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.